Hello, my people at Redemption Chapel. Pastor Rick coming to you to answer another question. And here's the question that was submitted that I want to tackle this time. Somebody wrote this. I have a question I've always been curious about. When, say, you and your spouse pass away and move on to heaven, do you go together, or does a relationship like that not really exist after we die? Okay. The only way you would go to heaven together is that if you die at the same time, right? That's not the question. It's asking if a relationship like that exists in heaven. So the question really is, are we married in heaven? A very good question comes up time to time. Are we married in heaven? Now, let me give you a caveat real quick. When we talk about heaven, what we're talking about is the eternal state. And technically what we understand, there's a new heaven and a new earth, and we will actually live on the new earth. And so, but whatever, it's very fair, very fine to talk about being in heaven. For after all, Jesus occasionally used that language. That's okay. So, back to the real question. Are we married in heaven? Yes and no. Yes and no. Let me get after both angles. No, we're actually not married in heaven like you are implying. Okay, so how do we know that? In Matthew chapter 22, there was a group called the Sadducees that tried to trick or trap Jesus with a question. Now, the Sadducees end up asking about marriage in heaven, but their interest is really not marriage. They don't believe in the resurrection. They don't believe in some life after this one. And so they're trying to trap Jesus into that. And so what they come up with is this scenario. They say, hey, Jesus, there's this woman, and she's been married 7 times on earth. So like in heaven, like whose wife is she? Huh? How about that? What do you say, Jesus? Come on. Right? You see what they're doing? Jesus answers this way. It's really, really not flattering. Listen to this. Chapter 22, verses 29 to 30 of Matthew. Here it is. But Jesus answered them, you are wrong, because you know neither the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. All right, so there it is. No marriage in heaven. Now, in that, let me caution you, Jesus says they're like angels in heaven. Some people get crazy with this idea, and they think, though the Bible doesn't teach us, they get into this idea that when we die, we become angels. No. Angels and humanity are 2 separate creations of God. We do not become angels when we die. We stay humans, they stay angels. But angels are in the presence of God, and they are not married. So he's saying, like, you humans, you become like angels in this sense, in the sense that you're not married in heaven. Okay, that's all he's saying there. Don't make more of it than that. What that means then is that marriage seems to be a temporary provision for us in the old earth, or one we're in right now, the fallen world. So this world is difficult, so God provides companionship through marriage, and we help each other. There's a lot of sanctification, believe me, a lot of sanctification that happens in marriage. And so we need sanctified, and so God has provided marriage as one of the ways. Singlehood can work too, but marriage is one of the ways that God does that. That's good. And as well, marriage in this fallen world is a shadow of the things to come, a reflection of what is yet to be something greater. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So we do enjoy marriage. It's very valuable. I don't want to devalue it. It is a very important, valuable thing, but we are not married in heaven. Now, having said that, one of the questions that can come up off of that then is, wait a minute, time out. So I'm not going to know my spouse in heaven? I didn't say that. You won't be married to her or to him, okay? I believe when I get to heaven, while I will not be married to Shannon, I will know her, I'll recognize her. She'll probably be one of my dearest friends for all we've shared. We'll remember what we shared together in discipleship to Jesus on earth. I think I'll recognize my children, Lord willing. I believe they both put their faith in Christ, and they'll be there with me. And so I will know my son Caleb and my daughter Madison, and I will remember that that's my son, that's my daughter, and all the family memories. Absolutely. There'll be continuity of relationship, but Shannon and I won't be married. Now, How do I know I will recognize people like that in heaven? Did I just make that up? Well, here's the thing. A couple verses I'll throw at you. First of all, King David in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23, King David's son died as an infant. And David was mourning and grieving, and he said, "He will not come to me, but I will go to him." Which strongly implies, of course, that then David will go see his son in heaven and will know him and recognize him and know that that was his son. See, continuity of relationship. As well, in Matthew chapter 8, verse 11, Jesus said that many will come and sit at table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. So, evidently, people will sit down and eat with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they will be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they will be recognized as such. You see that? There's also one last one that I'll give to you is the transfiguration. This comes out of, for example, Matthew 17, when Moses and Elijah show up. Now, these are Old Testament saints who are in their eternal state, or at least a transient state in between, not getting into that. But they are kind of called up out of retirement. They come back for a very brief cameo at the transfiguration, and they are recognized as Moses and as Elijah. So there's continuity in personhood. You see that? All right. So all that to say, yes, I will recognize my wife in heaven, but no, she won't be my wife any longer. We won't be married in that sense. Okay? So no marriage in heaven. However, yes, there is marriage in heaven. We are married to Jesus. It's not that there's no marriage in heaven. It's just that I'm not married to Shannon. There is marriage in heaven. We are ready, we're anticipating, we're longing and looking forward to the marriage supper of the Lamb, when Jesus, the Lamb of God, marries his bride, the church, and there's going to be this great feast and celebration. And so, yes, there's absolutely marriage in heaven, Jesus to the church. And you can see that in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 30. Paul is talking in Ephesians 5 about marriage. Wives do this, husbands do that, and how it should work. And then he says, but look, this mystery is great, but I'm speaking with reference to Jesus and the church, the marriage of Jesus and the church. So this earthly marriage is actually just a foreshadowing, a reflection of the bigger mystery, the greater thing that is yet to come, the marriage of the Lamb to his church. That's a very consistent principle, because look, things don't just go away. They get resurrected, they get redeemed, they get improved, they get glorified, they get better. You see that? So our earthly marriages are simply a reflection, a foreshadowing that is to point to the real thing, the substance of the real thing that is yet to come. And by the way, it is better. Now, let's be honest, it's kind of hard for us to imagine that right now, right? Like Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, he says that we have not seen, we have not heard, we have not imagined the things God has prepared for us. It blows our mind. We can't even imagine it. And that's true. We can't. I know my marriage to Shannon, and I think of heaven and I go, really? I'm not married to her? That's not better. Like some ethereal marriage to Jesus? What? That's not better. It's because we can't even imagine it. But yeah, it's going to be way better. C.S. Lewis explained it like this. He was talking about sex. Okay, and so one of the highest pleasures we know on earth is sex. And we go, wait a minute, no sex in heaven? How can that be heaven? How can that be good? Right? Here's how he explained it. I love this. He said, I think our present outlook might be like that of a small boy who, on being told that the sexual act was the highest bodily pleasure, should immediately ask whether you ate chocolates at the same time. You see the little kid, he doesn't know about sex. He goes, oh, so you eat chocolates then, right? Well, sometimes, maybe. Anyway, I'm not getting into that. All right, on receiving the answer no, he might regard the absence of chocolates as a chief characteristic of sexuality. So you see, since he doesn't know sex, all he thinks of, oh, sex is when you don't eat chocolates. No, son, it's way different than that. All right, so he views it as a chief characteristic. Now, Lewis continues. He says, in vain would you tell him that the reason why lovers in their raptures don't bother about chocolates is that they have something better to think of. The boy knows chocolate. He does not know the positive thing that excludes it. We are in the same position. We know the sexual life. We do not know, except in glimpses, the other thing which in heaven will leave no room for it. Right? So here you are. You understand that on earth, when you have sex, you're not really missing chocolate. Like who cares, right? But you get that. But you're actually like the little boy in this analogy because he's looking at that and his mind is blown. He can't get it, right? And we're looking at heaven and we're going, really? No sex? Really? No marriage to my wife? No, it can't be good. And you just don't know it yet. You don't understand it yet. See, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what the great things God has prepared for us. Or in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17, it says, for this momentary light affliction is producing us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison. The weight of the glory of heaven is so beyond even comparing it. It's just, and so when it rolls over into chapter 5, that's where Paul writes that we are groaning, we're longing, we can't wait to be clothed to get to heaven. So yeah, it's hard for us to understand sometimes. And to that end, let me just end by suggesting a book by Randy Alcorn called Heaven, quite simply titled Heaven. One of the best books I've ever read on this, and boy, it gets into so much detail. It's awesome. I would really, really encourage you to read that book and understand some of these things deeper. So there it is. Yes, there's marriage in heaven to Jesus. No, not to your earthly spouse. Hope it helps. Glad to answer this. Thanks for the question. Keep them coming. Love you guys. Bye-bye.